Welcome to Whisperer of Madness. If you're enjoying the story, consider liking the video and subscribing. It really helps grow the channel and this community. Mobius different from ordinary troops. This elite group formed of exemplaries needed to start on missions right away. The Atlan Union had spent much manpower and physical resources on supporting the Special Task Force, and they were naturally not to be underestimated. However, this method of mentoring through fighting had resulted in the dissatisfaction of some members. Of course, with Sky-rank Skiker around suppressing them, it was as if nothing had happened. "Hi, Lay, I'm Mise. This is our first time on the battlefield. How are you feeling?" "Nervous." The pale young man who had been the first for the testing leaned towards him, looking to fawn on him. "All right," Leyland answered indifferently, and then pointed towards the burly man who had mastered the 6th level of Fireplume. "What's his name?" "Him. He's Loke, and rumors have it that he was an expert at being a mercenary. Look at that pretentious display, as if all eyes are on him." Mise played the role of a lackey very well as he immediately stood in line, his instinct now to help his boss beat down the number 2. "Oh," Leyland said lightly, and did not continue inquiring. As fresh recruits, they had gotten a set of new clothes that were very pliable and could even protect against high temperatures and ordinary knife slashes. As far as this world's treasures went, they were all right. "Look at these clothes, how chic." Mise looked at the completely black uniform and could not help but be infatuated with it as he arranged his collar. Watching him act so foolishly, Leyland had little to say. "We're on a mission. Focus." Upon hearing this, Mise froze for a moment as he continued to move quickly. Immediately afterwards, he looked in the direction of Skiker guiltily. Seeing that the officer hadn't been focusing in their direction, he relaxed and heaved a sigh of relief. After the excitement, Mise calmed down. He looked uneasy, his slight nervousness apparent as he looked towards Leyland. "Lay, what kind of mission do you think we will be assigned to?" In his eyes, this comrade was exceptionally mysterious and had a calm that most lacked. Even just staying by his side gave him a feeling of security. "Whatever it is, it won't be easy," Leyland spoke dully. In actuality, he was guessing that the mission was a test for the recruits. There was no better proof than real battles. Through intense fights, the weak would fail and be eliminated, while the strong would survive and gain even more resources. This was the ruthless order of nature. Leyland guessed that this operation might be tailored just for them. Were it not so, the difficulty would be too high. Most of the members, maybe even the entire squad, would be wiped out. The Atlan had enough strength and backing. That was enough to attract numerous willing participants, and there was no fear of the lack of manpower. But, am I going to bump into the Triserpent sect on the first mission? A trace of doubt streaked through Leyland's mind. He had yet to gain enough information and knew little of how things stood with the Triserpent sect. It was not a good idea to make contact with them recklessly. Thankfully, Skiker, who was standing in front, began to speak coldly and dispelled Leyland's doubts. "Our mission this time is to eliminate an extremely evil, bloody sect, a branch of the Mobius organization. Kill all members." They were now far away from the barracks and city, and had come to an open, desolate area. Large amounts of red lava reflected an orange splendor that even dyed the horizon crimson. With the bonus from Fireplume, these Special Task Force members all maintained a vigorous physical strength, and were still in good condition even after running across a long distance. "Mobius organization," Mise immediately cried out in surprise. "That disgusting sect that likes blood sacrifices and dismemberment." "A disgusting sect that likes blood sacrifices and dismemberment," Leyland's brows furrowed, seeming having heard the large and burrowing man he had befriended previously speak. The sect seemed to be very secretive, and the higher-ups held enormous strength. There were rumors that it was being spread even in the Divine Flame Empire and could not be destroyed. Of course, with their extreme methods, they weren't that welcome. That Mobius organization. Heavens, I hear that they're insane. To avenge one of their bishops, they massacred a city. The members began to discuss this softly, the sounds of endless whispers mixing together. Seeing this, red light emitted from Skiker's face. "Silence!" he shouted as tremendous sound waves covered the region. If not for having sensed a soundproofing barrier being set up just prior, Leyland would have assumed that Skiker was a spy, intentionally notifying the Mobius organization. "We're soldiers. It is our duty to obey orders." "Isn't it just a Mobius organization? What are you afraid of? Don't forget, you're now Special Task Force members. The moment you disobey an order, I'll immediately execute you. Even if you can escape, You'll have to deal with being the target of a kill order from the Union." Skyker's words were eerily cold, and with the powerful force field undulations of a sky rank, the original tendency towards disorder was wiped out. "Do you want to betray the Union?" Skyker's dark words immediately had the Special Task Force members grow resolute as they answered in unison. "No, definitely not." "Good. These are the warriors our Union needs." Skyker seemed satisfied. "The organization has only a few Earth ranks in charge. What does that count for? After succeeding, just the rewards alone are enough for you to spend for quite a few months. You might even accumulate points towards becoming nobility. Now, we'll allocate tasks." While Skyker was immersed in his unceasing narrations, he had failed to realize the interesting change in Leyland's expression. With a sweep of his soul force, the concealed undulations and even a full view of the structure below was presented in front of Leyland, and he laughed. "Looks like the Union received relevant intelligence and know the military strength inside the stronghold like the back of their hands. Based on Skyker's plans, our side should have had a large chance of success, but it's a pity." With a scan of his soul force, Leyland found that there were quite a few Earth-rank priests in the Mobius organizations. On top of that, there were even a few bishops wearing red religious attire, emitting the terrifying undulations of sky ranks. "This is obviously a trap, though I don't know if this is aimed specifically at Skyker. Whatever it is, he's in trouble." Leyland's expression held traces of pity. "Good. This is the overall plan. Move." Skyker obviously knew nothing of Leyland's thoughts right now. On the contrary, he wanted to watch how Leyland, Locke and the rest performed and grade them. Rumble. Along with a giant explosion, the barren land that was initially empty blew up, revealing a large building with a number of floors. What first appeared was a glorious distorted black sculpture. The lines were simple and crude, and yet they gave Leyland a demonic impression. Under the sculpture were many decorative designs that gave it a style similar of that of an altar. There were limbs and livers from living beings on it, and the blood had not dried yet. The fresh blood kept dripping and filling the spell formation. The process of a sacrifice had obviously been interrupted, and a few low-ranked worshippers let loose roars of ire. "Leave none alive! Crush them!" Skyker howled. He didn't actually need to yell. The Special Task Force members had long since seen red and pounced forward, boiling hot rays flickering on their bodies. Fireplume activated, giving them immense support. Pooh! A palm filled with flames extracted itself from the body of a worshipper, and the accompanying flames burnt this vicious-looking worshipper to ashes. "You must all die!" Locke's chilly voice swept through, voice spreading, and Skyker nodded unceasingly while watching in secret. Meanwhile, Mize might seem cowardly, yet seemed to have had his thirst for blood kindled, especially after seeing his side winning all engagements. Many members were in high spirits as they went deeper in. "What is this lay doing?" Skyker nodded in satisfaction, but when his eyes were on Leyland, his face scrunched up in dissatisfaction. Leyland, who he'd thought should rush to the front lines, was wandering around within the group. Even when he did make a move, it looked like he was cowering and seemed listless, falling behind Locke by a large margin in terms of his kill count. That's not right. His way of moving forward implies he's having reservations about something. Has he discovered something? Skyker instantly became cool-headed, going through Leyland's actions and the information he had gotten previously. As he saw his troops continuously heading in after their victories, his pupils shrank as he realized that his members had lost their formation. "Crap! Come back!" Skyker shouted loudly, but it was much too late. Boom, boom, boom. Large amounts of sparks exploded, forming a heat wave that wiped out most of the Special Task Force members. Even with the protection of Fireplume, the high temperature surpassed their limits caused them to turn into charred corpses. "Keek, Skyker, we meet again." A few figures wrapped in light stood before Skyker, accompanied by warriors and worshippers, donning garments of their sect. "Sky rank, 2 sky ranks." Mize, who was lucky to have survived, watched the 2 tall figures in the air and cried out in pain and despair. "It's you! So it was a trap." Skyker remained collected. "Yes, this is a trap specifically to deal with you. What happened 15 years ago can be settled properly now." The 2 bishops in red clothing held hatred in their eyes. Hot-blooded breakthrough, all members, break free from the encirclement. Skyker's shout after the momentary silence surprised the 2 bishops. Red flames surged from his body, even forming a giant phantom of a flying beast behind him. This was a perfect creature like those in legends, bathed in fire like a god born of the flames. The 8th level of the fire plume. Skyker, you've gotten this old, yet you still haven't made any progress. The two bishops exchanged a glance and took a step forward together, a huge pressure dispersing in all directions and suppressing the phantom of the fire phoenix ahead. As if night had fallen, great amounts of black mist bound Skyker to them. A great battle was about to happen. Kill them! Numerous members of Mobius' organization yelled, and figures in dark robes with daggers or the like in their hands darted out of the shadows. The sounds of shouts were unceasing. Most of the members of the special task force were new, and the surprise attack resulted in heavy casualties. Their morale immediately fell, and there are some members who were outside who roared as they escaped into the distance. Thud. Skyker was ruthlessly smashed to the ground by a fist, patterns that seemed to be multiple curses creeping up his body. Even the horrifying flames of the 8th level of the fire plume was useless. A large quantity of flames was even contaminated by the curse runes and gradually died down. Over time, even the fire phoenix behind Skyker's back was beginning to whine. Skyker was pale. A few large wounds appeared on his body, countless black runes digging their ways in like earthworms. "Ha ha! Skyker, you're going to die today." One of the bishops in red smiled relaxedly. Let the instructor go." The sudden yell interrupted the words of the bishop in red, and he furrowed his brows. What saw were two emburrowing clansmen with flames around their bodies charging over as if they had gone mad, looking frightened and worried. "Keek! What hot-blooded young things! Skyker, you're still as capable at brainwashing as before." The other bishop laughed coldly. "Let me slaughter them before I take care of you." The old man had a drunken look. Merely killing the other party was not enough to satisfy his interest. The hatred that had lasted over a decade gave him the urge to torture him for over a period of time, and just when Skyker had given up all hope, kill him. Such a method of revenge was the sweetest. "You guys!" Skyker clutched his chest, twisting his head to watch the figures rushing over, touched but also anxious. "Leave! You aren't a match for him. Try your best to break out. Keek, you can't escape." The old man sneered and got his partner to watch Skyker while he blocked the path of those two young and burrowing clansmen. "Instructor, hang on!" Leyland's face was flushed as he called out, the fire plume exhibiting its full strength at his hands. Terrifying flames burned, causing a few Earth-rank worshippers to suffer. Expressions of dread appeared on their faces as they kept a distance. This display would probably be similar to a hot-blooded lead character in my previous world, the kind who'll have a breakthrough at the most crucial moments. Leyland made fun of himself while putting on his best act. At the same time, he ran his gaze across the surroundings. Due to the ambush, the casualties the Special Task Force sustained were very serious, and practically all the members had died in battle. That kid Mize, however, had smeared blood on his face and collapsed, using some secret technique to hide his aura. This had allowed him to survive. He was much more fortunate than those who had escaped and been chased after and killed. He hadn't sustained many injuries and was on a whole other level. Noticing the look of gratitude on Skyker's face, Leyland grew speechless. "If you knew that the two who seemed to be risking their lives to save you actually had other intentions, I wonder if you'll start vomiting blood." Leyland shot a glance to the side. The cool, burly man at the 6th level of the fire plume was now fighting with all his might, looking enthusiastic and impulsive, and seeming completely loyal. In actuality, he was also someone harboring malicious intentions. There was the obvious aura of another race on his body, but that had been concealed very well. If not for Leyland having probed him with his AI chip and soul force, he might have been duped as well. "Ley, I'll hold them down. You go and save the instructor," Loke shouted after seeing Leyland looking in his direction. Large amounts of flames shot out of his body and surrounded the few Earth-rank worshippers around him. The sounds of explosions could be heard unceasingly, and the battle was obviously fierce. "Damn it. You found a bunch of low-leveled cannon fodder to protect yourself and gave me 2 sky ranks." Leyland rolled his eyes but still rushed forward with a roar, throwing a fist at the bishop in red who was standing in the middle of the path. Bang! Scree! The ear-piercing sound of an explosion sounded, seeming to be an enthusiastic call from a phoenix. A fire phoenix slightly smaller than that which had appeared behind Skyker emerged on Leyland's back, the bright red flames so splendid that they were like sunlight, giving Leyland a layer of golden armor. Ahem! The peak of the 7th level of the fire plume. The bishop, who was blocking the way, cried out in astonishment. Though the fire plume was a compulsory technique for all Imberwang clansmen, with practically every adult having reached between the 1st to the 3rd level, there were few who reached the 5th level or above that. The peak of the 7th level meant he was just one step away from the sky rank. With how young this Imberwang clansman appeared to be, he was absolutely a rare talent. "Little guy, you've got pretty bad luck to have met me," the bishop in red snickered. Wiping talents off the face of his world was his guilty pleasure. Even if these talents would have a boundless future, a dead talent was not even comparable to a dog. Snap! Turbulent black streams of air surged through the air, forming a giant scorpion that blocked Leyland's path. "Explode!" With a loud cry, the red force in Leyland's hands became even more vigorous and seemed to turn into a bundle of flames, darting towards the scorpion. The flames initiated by the fire plume crackled as they scorched the surface of the scorpion's large black pincers. Parts of the black air dissipated. However, that was all the flames could do. Pack! The black gas scorpion waved its other pincer around, and Leyland was sent flying, fresh blood spilling from the corner of his lips. Let the instructor go." Leyland collapsed and appeared gravely injured, but he crawled back up, charging forth again. The giant fire phoenix phantom was less imposing than before, but still let loose a booming cry. Crash! 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 Leyland was flung backwards time and time again, and it seemed the bishop in red wanted to make Leyland waste all his energy. This would agitate Skyker even more, which was why he had held back a little every time and allowed Leyland to struggle up again. Seeing Leyland tenaciously struggling on and not giving up, even if Skyker's heart was as hard and cold as steel, he still felt a warmth boiling up from his chest. Hot air went up to his eye sockets, leaving him on the verge of tears. "Give up, child, leave," Skyker yelled uselessly. "No, I won't ever give up." Leyland yelled out words that made himself want to vomit while waving his fists, the fire spilling everywhere, burning the ground till it was scarlet. Crash. He was sent flying again, and the bishop in red took several steps forward. "I'm already getting tired of this game. I'll take care of you the next time." Huala. The large black scorpion dissipated, and the streams of air converged before the bishop, terrifying energy undulations radiating. "That Ley, is he really a fool?" Meanwhile, Locke had just happened to have finished dealing with a few of his opponents and had crept closer. "Almost there. Once Ley dies, I can save Skyker with that and request a higher position." A determined look rose in Locke's eyes, his hand already extended into his clothes, touching a round object. "Ley, you're a good person with astounding talent, but it's a pity. This is a dog-eat-dog world. Your enthusiasm will not give you anything in return and will only leave you dead. Rest in peace." Locke spoke in his heart, like a leopard waiting before a hunt as he hid in wait. All of a sudden, his eyes widened, eyeballs protruding and almost popping out, mouth huge as he bawled in disbelief. "Goddamn, does that even happen? For love and justice." Leyland, who was bathed in flames, looked even more saintly. As he saw the bishop closing in, he had a holy look on his face. Following that, with his yells, great golden flames surged out and healed all his wounds. Even the terrifying phantom of a phoenix that seemed omnipresent formed at his back. If the phantom that Leyland had summoned before was a mere illusion, each feather of the phoenix floating behind him was undeniably real. It was as if a real ancient fire phoenix had descended. The powerful undulations of fire plume broke through the boundaries of the peak of the 7th level and entered a much more powerful level. "Shit, he actually broke through," Locke cursed. The 8th level of the fire plume signified the sky rank. In other words, Ley was now on the same level as the two bishops in red and Skyker. This actually happens. Compared to Locke, the bishop who was the main lead felt as if he had received a huge blow. How could a hot-blooded idiot actually have a breakthrough right before death? And he had even advanced and was on the same level as himself. This did not make sense. Skyker, on the other side, was filled with elation. Die. Terrifying waves of heat of the 8th level of the fire plume immediately shrouded Leyland as he charged before the old bishop in red. Boiling hot waves swept through and even broke through his opponent's defense, causing the old man's eyebrows and beard to start to burn. Taking root * thud. The iron fist wreathed in scarlet flames ruthlessly struck the old bishop clothed in red, causing him to fall back while coughing blood. The large phantom phoenix at Leyland's back let loose a frightening cry. Pressing forward, Leyland immediately charged to the other bishop in red. Even if you're also a sky rank, you've only just advanced. You definitely know too little about battles between sky ranks. Kid, looks like I'll be the one to have to deal with you. The bishop who was on his guard against Skyker yelled. The reason for the defeat of his ally before seemed to be an underestimation of his enemy, which was why Leyland's sneak attack had been successful. Let Instructor Skyker go, and I can pardon you. With a ferocious roar, Leyland and this bishop collided. Rumble, a red blaze and a black storm intertwined as they engaged in battle. The soil was devastated, opening up to reveal the bedrock. Things should be fine, right? Even if Ley suddenly broke through, those are 2 sky ranks. Loke touched the item in his hands, preparing to dash out. He had come here with a mission. He was to gain Skyker's trust and successfully sneak into the higher ranks of the Special Task Force. However, with Leyland suddenly interfering, he was obviously annoyed. Pooh! A streak of fiery red rays broke through the storm and made a quick stop by the area Skyker was located. The man disappeared. Whoosh. In the next moment, Leyland brought Skyker and appeared before Loke and pushed Skyker into Loke's arms. Leave with the instructor. Though Leyland did not know what kind of expression Loke had on his face right now, he was sure that he wanted to curse him and his family. Due to his escape, the storm which had initially lost its target was madly rushing in his direction. The bishop ahead who had been attacked by Leyland had already come rushing over to hunt him down with a grim expression. Damn. Ley was at the peak of the 7th level, so it made sense that he suddenly broke through, but I only showed power at the 6th level. It's no use breaking through. Loke watched the 2 sky rank red-robed bishops who were dashing over and began to wail inside. I don't care anymore, I have to use this. Loke gritted his teeth and a black metal egg flew out. Swish, black light flashed and a slender metal egg exploded in the air. Large amounts of smoke flew out and a large construct appeared, blocking the area in front of the 2 red-robed bishops. A binding construct. The bishop's cries of surprise were transmitted into Leyland's ears, and he grinned inside. In front of Leyland, Loke's little schemes were like children's pranks that could be seen through by any adult, even forcing him to showcase his talents to this extent. This is a spider model construct, so you're. Skyker looked weakly at the construct, eyes glinting as they held more kindness towards Loke. The family treasure that I inherited can hold them for at least 5 minutes. Let's go. Loke displayed a smile that looked even more ugly than a crying face and carried Skyker on his back, a defensive layer from fireplume emitting from his body. Wait for me. Hearing they wanted to break out of the encirclement, one of the corpses on the floor leapt up, revealing Mai's bloody face. Big brother Ley, bring me along. So there's one more. Loke rolled his eyes powerlessly, feeling that the number of unexpected situations he had met in his life before this could not compare to this day. Good, let's go. Leyland chuckled, surging flames brimming on his body. He opened up a path of flames through the encirclement by the Mobius cultists. The 2 sky ranks were temporarily out of the way. Leyland used his fire plume at the 8th level and swept through the area immediately. Whether they were ordinary worshippers or crazed fanatics, none could withstand the attack of the crimson golden flames. Most of the ordinary followers would begin to burn if even the smallest spark touched them, turning into giant human-shaped torches. Take a rest here. I need to go out and do something. After returning to the camp in the city, Skyker had pretty much recovered and could even move around freely. On the surface, it was hard to tell that he was injured at all besides his slightly tattered clothing. Understood, instructor. Leyland and the other 2 immediately puffed their chests out and shouted. Skyker's gaze now held gratitude towards Leyland and Loke. Before proceeding forward, he patted Leyland and Loke's shoulders. Ley, you did well this time and even broke through to the sky rank. I will recommend you for a promotion. And Loke, I hope to be able to speak with you tonight. That would be my honor. Loke immediately shouted. From his expression, Leyland guessed that it was anything but bad. It looked like the origins of that spider construct had attracted Skyker's interest. The organization backing Loke has truly put in a lot of effort for him to sneak in. Leyland sighed inside, but little did he know that Loke was green with envy. If looks could kill, Leyland would probably long since have turned into a human torch. As for you. Skyker's eyes turned to Mai's, immediately causing the young man's face to turn as white as snow. I'd initially wanted to penalize you for escaping right in the face of battle, but this happened because of a lapse of judgment on my part. I'll let you off. Many thanks, instructor. Mize answered loudly, his apprehension disappearing. "But if there's another instance of this happening, I'll stuff your head up your arse. Do you hear me?" Skyker shouted, and Mize's little face crumpled. "All right, you're dismissed." Skyker left in a hurry, and Leyland was stuck deep in thought while watching his back. Just from the murderous aura he had that was unafraid and not planning on backing down, Leyland knew that some people in this base were in trouble. Skyker returned very quickly, and there were even some spots of blood on his collar and cuffs. He swore constantly while throwing a gold badge and a set of new military uniforms in front of Leyland. "You've been promoted to be a captain of the Special Task Force. You've also obtained a second-class Medal of Honor of the Union, as well as points for a rank as nobility. You now have enough to pay for the lowest authentication as a knight. Wear the uniform for now. The real documents and procedures will come in a few days later. Look, while you haven't been promoted, you've obtained a Medal of Honor from the Union as well." "It is my honor." Loke's voice was full of spirit, to the point that there were faint tremors in his voice. Seeing the fake look of excitement on his face, Leyland immediately realized the value of this Medal of Honor of the Union thing. However, this had little to do with him. After this matter, Skyker would definitely place him in higher regard and would allow him to look at some confidential information. That would be helpful. The average temperature of the lava world was at least 50 degrees and above. Astounding heat waves filled the air. As a result, most of the outer walls of buildings were very thin and had the function of absorbing heat. The buildings of the Imberwang race were of a different style than in Walking City. They were more similar to bamboo houses, and Leyland's residence used a rock that constantly emitted cold air, keeping his room always cool and refreshing. The benefits of being in the Special Task Force were generous. Even normal members had their own residences and allowances of resources for their training. As the captain, Leyland had a villa of his own. This chilly stone was a very precious resource, and those who did not have the captain rank could not enjoy this. Mize often found excuses to hang around at Leyland's, enjoying the cool air. Leyland currently held something like a monitor in his hands, skimming over something. With his authority, much of the information of the Special Task Force was open to him, and he had also gathered much information on the Triserpent sect. The full view of this organization appeared before Leyland's eyes. The Triserpent sect looks like it really has a connection to the Three Dukes. Leyland put down the monitor and rubbed the space between his eyebrows, unconsciously tapping at the table. From the intelligence, the Triserpent sect seems to be trying to overthrow the government of the Atlan Union, allowing other races to have more space to survive. In actuality, they're a bunch of terrorists. They intend to attack the city of every Imberwang clansman and loot them. They don't have any special activity. Using the AI chip, Leyland went through the cities that had been attacked. The data on the losses was arranged in a unique database, and the relationship was quickly found. This resource seems to be the favorite of the Triserpent sect. Leyland's eyes brightened. He'd found that the Triserpent bandits seemed to have a vested interest in a type of special ore. Perhaps the attacks on other cities were all in order to obtain the ores, but this target had been concealed well and not been discovered. However, through the comparison of gargantuan amounts of information, the AI chip had managed to accurately pinpoint this common ground from all the data on the destruction caused. Furosaur stone, a treasure said to be able to increase progress in Fireplume, and a top-grade ingredient only possessed by the Atlan Union. Leyland touched his chin, observing the projected image given by the AI chip as well as the explanation next to it. He sunk into thought. The reason why the people of the Triserpent sect liked this Furosaur stone, this much must be because of something unusual. Anything that would cause these Morning Star Magi to go so frantic had Leyland very interested as well. I remember that with my merits and status, I'm able to apply to purchase limited-grade resources. I can use this opportunity and get a sample for research. Leyland made his mind and commanded the AI chip to scan and record the other books of the Imberwang race. It was the accumulation of a civilized society in another world, and definitely held much research value for him. Furosaur stone time to go. Leyland kicked Mize, who had almost fallen asleep. Where are we going? Mize shrunk back a little, his vision blurred. If there was a choice, he would still have preferred to sleep here as the weather outside was so hot that it could make him pass out. Hurry up! Leyland raised his brows. Mize stood up immediately, feeling speechless. Okay, we shall go to the logistics department and check out the mission of the month. It's almost time. All right, you're the boss. Mize shrugged his shoulders. Ever since the last incident, Leyland had gotten promoted and became a captain of the special task force, while Mize was put in his unit, becoming one of his men. As for Loke, he had his way around. Even though he was not promoted after the last mission, he soon achieved lots of merit for the following events and got promoted to be a captain like Leyland just a few days ago. The logistics department of the special task force was not far from his residence. Every staff were as obese as pigs. They resembled nothing from the slender and good-looking traits of the Imberwing race. This had Leyland and his men shunning them. Hand me all of my special offerings of the month, and an exchange list. Leyland spoke to a big fat guy with oily hair who was sitting behind the counter with glass windows. At your service, Captain Leyland. The fat guy was full of smiles and had a gingerly look. Leyland's fame had long ago become widespread in the special task force. He had been able to achieve level 8 in Fireplume at such a young age, becoming a sky rank elite. His prospects were definitely boundless. Moreover, he had saved Skyker's life. This was someone who was known to have a powerful background, tactical brilliance, and more importantly, a person that favored his own men. Thus, Leyland was assured to have a bright future. Some people speculated that becoming a captain was not the end of his road. He could possibly become a marshal of the Union with 1 star. This fatty wouldn't dare to neglect such people, and he handed Leyland his complete set of supplies. These supplies were a benefit enjoyed by every member of the special task force. The Atlan Union depended largely on their supplies and nobility. They had attracted and recruited numerous unbounded extraordinary ones. Leyland threw the supplies to Mize, who followed Leyland like a valet. He then opened the exchange list. The contents of Fireplume were at the top of the list, the first 8 levels being recorded. This included some practical experiences as well as the special techniques of different individuals. It was everything he needed, totally perfect, except for one thing. It had no record of techniques at the 10th level, the Morning Star realm. This caused him to furrow his brows. Having stayed here for quite a period of time, Leyland had discovered that their special task force actually had high clearance to access in the Atlan Union, despite their infamous reputation. Even a captain like him was equivalent to a major general in the Union. Leyland grew a little discouraged at not being able to learn the 10th level of Fireplume, even with his current status. He was keen to know the second half of this technique. Currently, Fireplume was the only path to power Leyland knew that combined physique and the soul perfectly. In his own world, these 2 paths were separated into knights and magi. Nonetheless, even with the help of Skyker and the others as specimens, the information the AI chip could simulate only pulled Fireplume to the 9th level. A lot of time and power would be required to deduce the 10th level, the Morning Star realm. Only when one reaches the Morning Star realm along a path will it become obvious. Levels 1 to 9 can be deemed creative, but I'm not sure what the real path to power is like. Rumor had it that the Imberwing race descended from the Phoenix, but Leyland disagreed. He had already tried it out and hadn't found any genetic segments related to the ancient bloodline. Still, when Fireplume reached a certain level, it was clearly linked to the Phoenix. This was what had Leyland confused. We can put aside doubts about Fireplume for now. Let's look for the Phurosaur stone. Leyland flipped down the page, and an image of a fiery ore appeared. Phurosaur stone increases the rate of advancement or even assists in breaking through to the next level of Fireplume. Top-grade treasure, valued at 100 nobility points for a gram, only available for ranks captain and above. 100 nobility rank points for a single gram, Miles shouted exaggeratedly from beside Leyland before he could comment on anything. I don't think I could afford such an expensive item even if I sold myself. He stuck his tongue out. Designation of nobles was very prestigious in the Atlan Union. Thus, audit was very strict. The only way for one to achieve a noble rank other than through the special task force was to head to the Death Grand Canyon battles. Therefore, everyone in the force protected their nobility rank points like their own eyes. For example, Mize felt repulsed just looking at the incredulous price of the stone. Hee, but this is a Phurosaur stone. It's exclusively supplied to top ranks like us in the Union, with just 1 gram being able to get you through 6 levels of Fireplume. The fatty laughed from behind the window, mockery in his eyes. 6 levels? Mize's eyes widened. It was very difficult to break through the latter stages of Fireplume. He had currently been stuck in the 5th level for a long time. Once he reached the 6th, he would become an Earth rank elite. The difference in position from now went without mentioning, and yet Mize glanced at the price tag, somewhat unwilling to give up his points. After all, being able to acquire nobility was a rare chance, and he could not bear to spend all the points he had earned. "Yep, I'm exchanging all my points," Leyland nodded. Immediately, Mize shouted without a thought, "Captain, have you gone mad?" "Of course I haven't. I'm very calm and know what I'm doing." Leyland shook his head. After all, this was a foreign world. Nobility here meant nothing to me, and it was something he would have to think about even if offered for free. Thus, his points were better spent on resources. Hold on, Captain. Your transaction somewhat exceeds my authorization limit." The fatty behind the window found it hard to sit still, and beads of oily sweat trickled down his forehead. They were cleaned off along with his white handkerchief. He could only exchange 1 or 2 grams of Furosaur stones at best. That was the limit of his authority. But this obviously did not satisfy Leyland's needs. Soon, another fat guy had received the notice, and he came to Leyland. He had strong energy fluctuations of the sky rank at the boundary of Morning Star. "Chief!" Leyland and Mize bowed down slightly. The one who had just arrived was the chief of the logistics department and had a higher military rank as compared to Leyland. "Hey, Ley, you have enough nobility rank points to earn you the title of a baron. Are you really going to trade them all away?" The fat chief looked at Leyland with pity. He'd thought highly of this genius. "Yes," Leyland was firm. "As compared to nobility, I would like to focus on my abilities first. As long as I have what it takes, I'm going to get more valuables and higher positions." "Brilliant." Someone at the side clapped loudly. Skyker had come beside Leyland without notice. "Exchange for him." Skyker nodded at the fatty, then exclaimed, "If I were to think like him while I was young, I would have gotten more achievements than I have now." "All right then, as you wish." The fat chief wiped his sweats on his face using a gold handkerchief. "Follow me. The exchange of nobility rank point isn't a simple affair, but it should be all right since Skyker is around." After settling on a series of authorization documents, Leyland had finally gotten the Furosaur stone. He thanked Skyker and the chief once more before he returned to his place. "Furosaur stone!" Leyland opened his palm, revealing a fiery ruby. It seemed to contain a large amount of liquefied ore. The entire ore was only the size of Leyland's fingernail. This was all that Leyland's nobility rank points could be exchanged for. Despite its petite size, the chief of the logistics department spent much efforts to gather it, even having to transfer some from other regions to barely make it enough for Leyland. A phantom of a phoenix showed up behind Leyland, letting out whistles of excitement. Leyland had the premonition that once he made use of the Furosaur stone, his level 8 fire plume would advance greatly, even to the extent of breaking through level 9. But it was not the strange phenomenon of the Furosaur stone that caught Leyland's attention. It was the notice from the AI chip. Beep. Special object detected Furosaur stone. Gathering information. After a period of examination and simulation, the AI chip sounded again. Special soul object Furosaur stone. Able to strengthen Magus point mass. Increases soul force to an unknown extent. Looking at the AI chip's notice, Leyland's eyes widened. It could increase soul force. Who knew this Furosaur stone had such an effect? The advancement of a Magus and the power of their spirit were inseparable. From ranks 1 through 3, one trained in spiritual force. Soul force came into the picture after one entered the Morning Star realm. Soul force was the most mysterious amongst all. Even though there were many great meditation techniques, they could only result in a strengthening of the soul over a long period of time. One could not be sure of the pattern. Even those great meditation techniques required at least hundreds of years to improve one's soul force, and it was even worse in Leyland's case. Kem-In's pupil ended at rank 4, not giving him a single bit of information as to how to increase his soul force. Thus, he could only continuously try his luck. The organization's leader now, a wide golden path had appeared in front of Leyland. As long as he gathered enough Furosaur stones, his soul force would increase greatly. Even the soul force of a Morning Star Magus, who had thousands of years of experience using the top meditation techniques, might not be as strong. If the Morning Star Magi in the Magus world learn about this, I'm afraid they will go mad over it. Leyland stroked his chin, finding it a little puzzling. A precious source like this is a fatal attraction to Morning Star Magi. If so, why would Jupiter's lightning use this world to trap the elders despite risking the exposure of the coordinates? This doesn't make sense. At that moment, everything that had happened previously left Leyland confused. Maybe they had confidence in getting rid of the elders, but did not expect that they could get away, which had them caught unprepared. Or maybe they didn't even manage to find a source like the Furosaur stone. After all, if they don't have the help of the AI chip, they will only know the amazing function of the Furosaur stone if they conduct an on-site inspection. All he could do was to speculate. Anyway, the reason the Triserpent sect is so eager to get the Furosaur stone could very well be that their morning star Magus has already found out the function of it. Now I have to gather as many Furosaur stones as possible. The fourth level of Kemian's pupil already had little effect on Leyland. It had helped his advancement for quite a while already, but there was no change to his soul force at all. In actual fact, many Morning Star Magi faced the same difficulty. It was very hard to improve their soul force, even with top-grade meditation techniques. This trip to the lava world was such a great decision. Leyland held his grid tightly. His eyes were filled with excitement. In the capital of the Atlan Union, a huge and prosperous place, a void was created deep underground, a massive flame ball staying in the middle of it like a sun, showing the vague figure of a phoenix. A continuous high-pitched whistling of the phoenix was transmitted through the flame ball, the entire ball breathing in and out as if it was alive. There was a huge pentagram-shaped spell formation there, in the middle of which rays of crimson light were being drawn out and immersed into the flame ball. The phoenix inside was extremely excited, just like it had benefited greatly from the rays. There were some remaining crimson light rays dropped down at the side of the spell formation. They solidified over some time and turned into fire stones. Moments later, the phoenix in the flame ball stopped the flame. It transformed into a human bathed in a stunning golden light. This was a handsome male. He had scarlet hair and brows, his aura filled with surging waves of power. Even the void around him fluctuated. An aura of the peak power of a radiant moon Magus surrounded him. The scarlet-haired man had a regal crimson robe draping over his shoulders, fully dressed on the inside. He went to the other basement, which was empty save for a giant mirror, leaving only large amounts of binding runes appearing regularly. "We meet again, my dear President of Atlan Union, Your Highness Durat." A hologram of someone in radiant moon Magus robe with a crescent mark on his forehead appeared in the mirror. Weird dark power was released strangely, his aura somewhat able to compare to Durat's. The Magus who appeared in the mirror was the leader of Jupiter's lightning, a rank 5 Magus. "Hello, my guest from a foreign world." Durat smiled, his crimson feathers radiating lust. The Magus in the mirror turned silent for a while, as if he had sensed something. Moments later, he opened his eyes and smiled. "It seemed like you have accepted my suggestion. How is the effect?" "It was great, my friend, just some improvements to be made." Durat nodded his head. "This requires me to put in more time and effort. Most importantly, I was unable to get enough on-site information, unless you allow me to go over." The radiant moon Magus in the mirror shook his head. "Of course not. My friend, we are both the elites above the morning star realm, and this world needs protection." Durat rejected immediately. Welcoming a foreign world's elite was definitely a trouble for himself. Durat had only thought of making use of the Magus with caution. Never had he thought of other possibilities. "All right, then next let's talk about the deal," the leader of Jupiter's lightning in the mirror said helplessly. A morning star Magus was like a little stone on a beach in the world, a little hard to recognize without careful inspection. A radiant moon Magus like him, on the other hand, was more obvious, an elephant in the room. The moment he tried to cross over, Durat would attack him mercilessly. On this matter, Durat was able to gain the support from the world's will, which made him way more powerful than any ordinary rank 5 Magus. Thus, despite being a similar rank 5, the man in the mirror had never thought of getting himself into trouble. He could only send some of his man over to run errands for him in secret. "That's right, my friend. As long as you keep your promise, we of the Emberwing race will show great hospitality." Durat smiled. The Magus opposite rolled his eyes. "Since you are very satisfied with the energy withdrawing spell formation, I have quite a few others you can try it out. In return, I want 500 grams of morning star gold, arcane ore, Paradean feathers, and also Furosaur stones." He continued with the names of numerous resources, and Durat agreed without any hesitation. "Sure. As long as your spell formations work, I will transfer them right away." After Durat had left the chamber, he sneered. You think I wouldn't know what you are really up to just by hiding the Phurosaur stone among the long list of sources? How naive. Upon reaching the study room had some documents viewed, he was outraged. The Triserpent sect. And the Mobius organization. These foreign tribes are way too much. I have to warn them and give them a lesson. Immediately he took a device from the table which looked like a telephone, strings of letters appearing from his fingers and vanishing into the speaker. All Special Task Force units in action. Destroy every base of the Triserpent sect and the Mobius organization in the Union's territories. Durat recalled something after he had put down the phone, and he passed down another urgent order. Skyker, take charge of the East region. That little pup should be back now after the contribution. Durat's face finally showed rare tinge of gentleness. The increasing of soul force feels really amazing. Leyland was far from the capital, therefore he was not aware of the silent undercurrents that developed throughout the Atlan Union. He was still indulged in the joy of the advancement of his soul force. The feeling of using the Phurosaur stone was utterly fantastic, making him feel giddy as if he was drunk. Once the effect ended, his body was much more vigilant than before, and his soul force much more active than usual. Leyland took a look at his stats. Leyland Farlier, rank 4 Warlock bloodline. Chem-in Serpent, complete form, strength, 50 agility, 45 vitality, 65 spiritual force, 539.7 magic power, 539 magic power in synchronization with spiritual force, soul force. Even though the soul force is not shown, the spiritual force had increased by 30 plus units. It's probably a side effect of the increase in soul force. Leyland was over the moon. This advancement in soul force was comparable to the process of those morning star magi having had to practice top-grade meditation techniques at least 10 years. With how things looked, as long as he had enough Phurosaur stones, his soul force would continue to increase at an incredible rate. How is this Phurosaur stone related to Fireplume? How is this produced? Leyland's eyes brightened. He had even put behind the rescue mission, and finding and gathering of enough Phurosaur stone had become his top priority. Boss, boss. At the same time, Mize's call sounded from outside, making Leyland frown. What is it? Didn't I tell you not to disturb me? Leyland pulled open the door, displeased. Not me, it's Instructor Skyker. We've got a big mission now. Mize's face reddened due to agitation, and he was still panting. Big mission. Leyland remained calm before Mize. Look at how you're behaving. All those trainings went down the drain. However, a weird premonition had taken shape in his heart. Is it related to the Triserpent sect? He was not too confident in handling this organization for now, despite there being a huge possibility that it was established by the 3 elders. Now that the Phurosaur stone had popped up, however, there were a lot of variables. Because it was very likely that those morning star magi under Jupiter's lightning to found out about the secret of the Phurosaur stone. Thus, they were forming connections underground and gathering them. Oh, and Instructor Skyker wants to see you now in his office. Mize finally caught his breath and finished the message. Got it. Wait for me here. Leyland closed the door and left Mize, dumbfounded, standing outside the room. He did not have to wait long. Minutes later, Leyland had changed into his military outfit and shown up in Skyker's office. Ley, here are your orders. Clear out these bases with your squad. Skyker signed some documents before handing them over to Leyland. Orders given. What mission is it? Leyland took the document that was labeled Top Secret on the cover and unconsciously furrowed his brows. The Union has ordered that our special task force is to attack the Triserpent sect and Mobius organization within the territory of the state. I am the person in charge of the eastern region. Skyker's voice was that of a hardened war veteran. Your squadron is in charge of a few strongholds of the Triserpent sect that have been discovered recently. I will personally take care of the Mobius organization's side. It was obvious that their trap had thoroughly enraged Skyker. Now he wanted to exact revenge properly. The Triserpent sect! A look of interest appeared on Leyland's face, though he was sighing inside. His intention in coming to the Atlan Union was to obtain some information regarding the Triserpent sect, but so many things had happened, especially with the appearance of the Phurosaur stone. That one resource had dispelled all other thoughts. However, just when he was hoping to continue concealing himself, this matter had suddenly cropped up, and it just so happened that he was involved. This left him not knowing whether to laugh or cry. The order this time was personally signed by the head of the state. The garrisons from all regions will coordinate with our operation. In other words, once we succeed, we will appear in front of the head immediately. Chances like these are hard to come by, Skyker seemed to be reminding him. Understood. Leyland saluted, his back ramrod straight, though he began making some guesses. It seemed that Skyker had an unusual relationship with the Union head, to the point that he could obtain the position of the person in charge of such a vital operation. He must have a very powerful backing. No wonder that Loke wanted to get close to him no matter what. Good, you may leave. Get Loke to come in. Skyker nodded in satisfaction. Yes, Leyland saluted and left. Every movement was like a textbook example and seasoned as a soldier. Skyker nodded inside after seeing this. Captain Loke, the instructor is calling you. After walking out, Leyland found that Loke was already waiting aside. Compared to before, there was more calm and steadfastness on his expression, and he had unwittingly broken through the 6th level and reached the 7th level of Fireplume. He could now be considered an Earth rank. Of course, this was all a facade. Leyland believed he was at least at the Sky rank, but he had somehow snuck in for some unknown reason and gained Skyker's trust. In the operation this time, Leyland was in charge of dealing with the Triserpent sect, while Loke was to follow Skyker and was in charge of the matters of the Mobius organization. Just this point made it clear to Leyland that Skyker trusted Loke more. In the Special Task Force, there had long since been rumors spreading that Ley and Loke were Skyker's left and right-hand men, and Skyker himself did not deny this directly. It's a pity. When you find out the two subordinates you'd thought were your helpers were actually enemies sneaking in as spies, I wonder what expression you'd have. Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be amusing. Leyland touched his chin, a smile on his face as he ruminated. Leader Ley, is there anything else? Loke observed Leyland, who was acting in this manner. For some reason, he felt a chill in his heart and seemed to have a bad premonition. Oh, nothing much. I was just thinking about the scene from our previous mission. Quick, get in. Leyland patted Loke on the shoulder and calmly sauntered away. Loke kept drawing back and stared at Leyland's back. Though he seemed to be sending Leyland off respectfully, there was a strange glint that flashed in his eyes. Soon, things will be different. A flicker of jealousy and hatred appeared in Loke's eyes. Though both Leyland and he were captains, one was a Sky rank while the other was only at the Earth rank. That naturally gave rise to criticism. Though Loke was considerably powerful and was on good terms with Skyker, he seemed to be a level below Leyland in many aspects. He might not seem bothered on the surface, but that was because he was trying to conceal himself. He wasn't preparing for a life in the Union anyway, but he still somehow felt strange. Of course, this was hidden well, and even the person closest to him had not realized it. Loke, what are you waiting for? Skyker's dissatisfied voice traveled from within the room. Loke was startled and immediately returned his expression to the original honesty with a trace of shrewdness and admiration, nodding and bowing as he entered the office. Reporting in. Back in his residence, Leyland was carefully browsing over some information in the documents. Only after some time did he put it down and sigh. The information within was so detailed that it was excessive. They even knew the strength of the leaders there, and it seemed that the Atlan Union definitely had hidden some spies and the like inside. The Triserpent sect will probably suffer heavy losses this time. Leyland stroked his chin. He still could not confirm if the Triserpent sect was an organization formed by the 3 giant Chemian serpent dukes, and he was not prepared to make a move. They were a few branches and strongholds anyway. Nothing would be missed even if everyone died, and with this, he could even gain a higher standing and more trust from the Union. That would make it convenient to pry into the secrets of the Phurosaur stone. With this thought, the light in Leyland's eyes gradually dimmed, a bone-chilling iciness within. B. Boss, what's going on? Mize chose this moment to push the door open and met Leyland's gaze. Instantly, he collapsed, cold sweat pouring, and was left stuttering. It's nothing. Our official mission has been handed down. Take a look. Leyland chuckled, and it was as if all that ice had melted with the smile. Warm sunlight shone down, and Mize was no longer limp on the ground and could struggle to take a hold of the document. However, while looking through it, his hands were still trembling slightly. Mize swore that he'd never have imagined that when Boss Ley's expression was grim, it would be so frightening. That bone-piercing chilliness was something he had never experienced before. Swearing in the name of the honor of the Emberwangs, he never wanted to meet that sort of gaze ever again. Heavens, he now felt that even the sweltering heat outside was more comfortable than staying in this room. How is it? Have you finished looking through it? Tell me your thoughts. Seeing Mise in this state, Leyland smiled gently and crossed his arms, body half leaning on the chair as he appeared to be at ease. Since it's an order from the headquarters and the head of state, we can only obey. However, the members of our squadron don't have enough strength, and I'm afraid we will need to mobilize and coordinate with the garrison. Mise was no fool to have been able to survive up to this point. With some slight reflection, things immediately became clear to him, and he even had a contingency plan in mind already. But Mise stealthily peeked at Leyland, who was expressionless, and decided that before he could understand the man's thoughts, it was best not to speak his mind. That bit of bloodthirst earlier had frightened him. Very good. I'll leave contacting the local garrison to you. Don't disappoint me. Unexpectedly, Leyland did not ask about his plans and instead gave him a task. Though Leyland did not explicitly state the consequences of not completing the task, Mise could somewhat guess that it was something he absolutely did not want to bear. Understood, Captain. As a long-term habit, while Leyland was issuing the command, Mise subconsciously stuck out his chest and saluted, expression full of respect. Ever since he had entered Leyland's unit, he was completely convinced by Leyland and understood how he worked. It was consistently simple and crude, and he did not allow for retorts. Mise was naturally tactful. Send down the order that I want our unit to assemble. Leyland waved his arms, and Mise immediately escaped as if he was faced with a huge enemy. Though Leyland was usually very easygoing, to the point that Mise could get benefits like stealing some cool air here, the Leyland in missions was very resolute about killing. He was not going to make things bad for himself now. After sending down the order, their unit assembled quickly. On a field, Leyland wore military attire and walked past the orderly line, looking satisfied. The lava world was a world with exemplaries. Their individual abilities far surpassed their collective strength, which was why this group was very small, with only 10 or so members. However, every single one of them was at or above the 5th level of fuming wings, meaning they were at the peak of the exemplary rank. He had 3 Earth ranks, and all had been forced to submission by him in missions. This was unthinkable in the eyes of many people. After all, Earth ranks were considered top-rated strengths even in the Atlan Union. They could take on important roles in the Corps, so how could they be the subordinates of a little captain? However, Leyland had done it, and many were in awe. In reality, Leyland's methods were simple. He had achieved victory with strength and forcefully suppressed them. Even so, he had not intentionally taken in these 3. They were an unexpected harvest. For him, Earth ranks were comparable to rank 1 or 2 Magi or Warlocks in the Magus world. He could kill a large number of those who possessed this level of strength with just a breath, and he did not even need to spend much energy on it. Even Sky ranks, who were comparable to rank 3 Magi, were nothing much. The ones able to affect Leyland were Star ranks, who were of a similar strength. The attention of a morning star would forever be focused on enemies of the same level. Based on the intel, the commanders of the few Atlan military districts are all Star ranks. Rumors have it that the head of the Union far exceeds the Star rank, and could be at rank 5, the Radiant Moon Realm. Lern touched his chin, a look of anticipation flashing in his eyes. Lava Base, I really want to try my hand at fighting an enemy of this level of strength. A fierce desire for battle burned in Leyland's eyes, but was quickly withdrawn. Though he was looking forward to the Radiant Moon Realm, he was no fool. Power at rank 5 was still far from him as he was now. Before he himself became a rank 5 Warlock, he was not going to fight with any Radiant Moon Magus, no matter who they were. Leyland currently had his arms behind his back, and after inspecting these members, he shouted, "Everyone, the head has issued our newest mission, which is an order for elimination. With us, the Special Task Force, taking the lead, the garrison troops will coordinate with us to uproot the Triserpent sect strongholds that are throughout the Atlan Union. Long live Atlan." Many members yelled together, an agitated flush on their cheeks. Compared to those troops formed with regular people, they were mostly people who were enlisted in a hurry and had not experienced much hardships, so it was expected if they had unrealistic delusions. Furthermore, this time, it was clear that Union was serious, and since the head had issued the command himself, it meant multiple opportunities to perform meritorious deeds. And those meritorious deeds would net them higher-level techniques, large amounts of information, and even the status and glory of nobility quite easily. How would they not be riled up? Good! Leyland obviously knew what these people were thinking. On the contrary, he was no saint. Hence, he did not destroy their hopes right now. There are a total of 15 strongholds in the eastern region that belong to the Triserpent sect. I will now hand down the assignments. In actuality, Leyland had not even told them how to choose their targets. In his perspective, only he and the 3 Earth ranks were mildly useful in his group. The others would probably only be useful running errands outside or providing moral support. It didn't matter, since they were only destroying the branches of the Triserpent sect, and the most powerful people there would probably be only at the sky rank. Within a large desert, boiling hot temperatures caused slight distortions in the sky. Heat waves surged, causing the scenery in the distance to seem blurred. One of the branches of the Triserpent sect is here. General Gilfa, your mission is to seal off this region and not let any suspicious characters escape. Any questions? In a simply constructed tent, Leyland pointed at a large map on the table and spoke to a white-haired Imberwang. This Imberwang was obviously not young, and even his mottled red feathers were falling down. However, the tenacity was as strong as ever. What had Leyland raising his eyebrows in surprise was that this old man was a sky rank. No problem, Gilfa nodded matter-of-factly. I will order the army to surround the area. Even a bug will not be able to escape. This high-ranking officer by the name of Gilfa was in charge of this region. He had been contacted by Mise. While he had control over the troops by order of the head, Leyland had gotten this general's support after displaying his strength. I hope you can destroy this nest in one go. A lot of disappearances in my jurisdiction are related to it, the general brought up. I understand. Let's go. Leyland nodded and left the camp, suddenly waving his arms. Rumble, his body turning into a tornado, he charged into the depths of the desert with a few similarly powerful pillars of light. This stronghold of the Triserpent sect is really covert. If not for the vast network of spies controlled by the Union, it would have been unlikely that I'd find this place. Light flickered in Leyland's eyes. The Atlan Union was much too vast. Even if he had his bloodline and soul fire crystal and searched from city to city, or even ran through the outskirts, it would still take several decades to cover the country. Even then, he could end up not even finding a trace of the Triserpent sect. They had long since been chased by the Union, and their actions had always been secretive. Leyland had no confidence that he would coincidentally bump into them. With the map, however, all the branches of the Triserpent sect were bared before Leyland. There was no difficulty in finding them now. But did the 3 dukes really create the Triserpent sect? A giant, fire-red lake had appeared before Leyland's eyes. At the heart of it, flames were vaguely seen. Based on the intel, the branch of the Triserpent sect was under the lava lake. Soul force surged through the lava and the desert to scan below, and it resulted in a marvelous expression on Leyland's face. This. With his soul force, Leyland could clearly see the many experiments in the laboratories of the Triserpent sect branch, as well as the modified Imberwangs. Bloodline modification experiments? As a warlock himself, he was no stranger to this, and could even be said to be a subject matter expert. With just a look, he could find many traces of what the Magus world, even the Ouroboros clan, were used to operative procedures. Could it be that the Triserpent sect really is an organization set up by the 3 dukes? Leyland's eyes flashed, a crimson crystal already appearing his hands, 2 threads of pale soul flames twining around each other. No reaction. The 2 dukes aren't here. Leyland shook his head. Though the range of bloodline and soul sensing was already quite vast, it was still too small in comparison to the whole Atlan Union, let alone the entire lava world. Attack! Thoughts whirling in his mind, Leyland unhesitatingly gave the order. A gigantic phantom phoenix made of fire appeared behind him. Bathed in pure golden flames, it was as if the real ancient phoenix had been reborn. This was the pinnacle of the 8th level of fire plume. Seeing this display, nobody would believe it even if Leyland himself admitted to not being an Imberwang. The point mass of a morning star was incomparably tiny, and massive strength could be held within this tiny point. It would not cause any clashes with other energies. Leyland had the AI chip to analyze and perform simulations for him. In reality, he had secretly already practiced up to the peak of the 9th level of fire plume. In other words, the limit of rank 3. However, as he lacked the training technique for the 10th level, he had been unable to progress further. Even if the AI chip could simulate it, too much time would be spent on it, and Leyland had thus lost his patience. Hence, he had focused on Skyker. He was sure that with Skyker's status, it was very possible for him to have access to the 10th level of fire plume. To Leyland's knowledge, There were 10 levels to Fireplume. The first 3 were for regular people, but the 4th and 5th, it would begin to touch on exemplary strength. The 6th and 7th were comparable to rank 1 and 2 Magi, while the 8th and 9th meant being able to battle rank 3 Magi. As long as he entered the 10th level, he would be a star rank, which was comparable to a morning star Magus in the Magus world. Leyland did not have much interest in the first 9 levels of the technique, and was only invested in the 10th level. After advancing to Morning Star, it meant that he had already chosen a path for himself. While Leyland had no plans of giving it up, other paths to power still had a lot of useful experience to give him. Fireplume was one of the most advanced techniques among those of foreign origin. It could combine both physical and spiritual aspects, and this train of thought was a breath of fresh air for him. If he could obtain the 10th level of Fireplume and gain clarity on the Imberwings, path and system, it would definitely be of much use to him. "Come out!" Leyland shouted, and an ear-piercing explosion sounded behind him, like a high-spirited phoenix cry filled with heat and excitement. Amidst the cry, Leyland abruptly made his move. The flames that filled the sky were as splendid as the wings of a phoenix as they swept through the ground and shaved a layer of soil off the earth. The ground kept trembling, and rocks and dirt were scattered everywhere. As if a geyser of water, the lava from the lake shot upwards as its surface emptied out, revealing a giant secret base underneath. Many members of the Triserpent sect raised their heads. Upon seeing the dazzling phantom phoenix, they yelled in alarm, "It's Atlan's Special Task Force! Those black leather dogs have caught up to us." The members of the Special Task Force were usually ruthless in their methods, possessed extraordinary power and dressed in black leather uniforms. That had netted them this title. "Aren't you wearing black robes too? What about it?" Leyland, who was in midair, grew speechless as he observed the followers who wore black, wide robes with an image of 3 black snakes intertwining on the surface. While he was quibbling, a few streaks of powerful undulations rose, and 2 black-clothed people who were obviously the leaders blocked his way, dressed in luxurious robes. The sounds of members of the Triserpent sect howling could be heard from within the stronghold. "Take care of that trash as soon as possible," Leyland's brows furrowed. He could not sense any special aura from these 2 black-clothed people. If they were higher-ups within the Triserpent sect and had made contact with Morning Star, there should be some radiation residue or the like on their bodies, but there were no traces at all on these 2 leaders. This led to Leyland's disappointment. "Understood, leader." A few streaks of red flames shot out, and Leyland's Earth ranks immediately began their massacre, doing as they liked amongst the ordinary followers. Crimson flames flashed, turning the region into a sea of fire. Facing this attack that was at the Earth rank, these ordinary disciples were mowed down like grass. Under the prowess of the exemplaries that he led, no matter how much battle intent the ordinary followers had, it all proved futile. That was the main reason why Leyland had brought a small team of only 10 or so people and dared to forcefully attack the enemy's large-scaled base. Developments Yurlay, the genius of the Special Task Force in the Eastern region, one of the dogs that Skyker's raising. The black-clothed person opposite him spoke with a hint of scorn. "You're looking for death." Leyland's eyes opened suddenly, as if 2 balls of flames were being launched from them. Shua, his entire body seemed to transform into a thread of flames, boring through his opponent's forehead and coming out through the back before turning back into a humanoid figure. Crackle. The black-clothed person who had not been the least bit modest with his words had a dazed look on his face. Seconds later, he turned into a torch of fire and began to incinerate fiercely. "Horf! Horf!" The other person in black was clearly stunned before beginning to shout. The voice was lovely and evidently belonged to a woman. You dare kill him." The woman raised her head, eyes full of hatred as she glared at Leyland, itching to hack him to pieces. Leyland merely hummed coldly as if he did not care. If looks could kill, what was power for anyway? These 2 heads were sky ranks, but they had obviously used some secret potion or taboo techniques to forcefully break through. Their auras were rather unstable, and were at most comparable to the peak of the Earth rank. Perhaps any expert at the 8th level of Fireplume could dispose of them easily. Of course, this was understandable. If the 3 dukes had created the Triserpent sect, they could not have gathered many techniques given the difference in the flow of time between Lava World and the Magus world. Support for advancement and methods that would result in instant benefits were necessary things. The woman did not rush over to fight with all her might. Instead, she ordered something into her communicative device in her hand. Activate the Berserk Legion. Ka-cha, ka-cha. A steel door in the base opened, and many Imberwangs with dazed expressions walked out. Their crimson eyes radiated a feeling of indifference. Their bodies were filled with strange runes, and parts of their bodies had obviously been strengthened and altered. Many of the Special Task Force members had difficulty even telling that they were Imberwangs. After being let out, the lost look in their eyes was replaced by viciousness as they let loose howls that were similar to those of beasts. Boom. A researcher nearby was immediately beaten to the point that blood splattered everywhere. A crimson rain fell on this Berserk Legion, causing them to appear even more malicious and terrifying. The Legion that had already gone insane began to destroy things without distinction. Whether it was the Special Task Force members or their own people, all were attacked. Due to the differences in numbers, the Berserk Legion landed the most critical attack on the followers of the Triserpent sect. Leyland, who saw this scene, could not help but shake his head. This woman was obviously treating these modified people who were as of yet unable to control their bloodlines as her trump cards and weapon for revenge. Ahaha! Horf's dead. I want all of you to die with him. The woman shouted maniacally, her voice so sharp that it could pierce through eardrums. This woman's gone crazy, or she wasn't mentally sound in the first place. Leyland shook his head. Watching her with pity, Leyland did not hold back. An enormous fire phoenix soared across the sky, its giant wings sweeping across the woman. It sent her retreating, coughing up blood. Boss, what do we do? Watching the Berserk Legion, especially whose members consisted of Imberwangs, Mise was caught in a dilemma. Not only were those of the Berserk Legion insane, their battle might was astounding. On top of that, they were his fellow clansmen, so Mise found it difficult to attack. It doesn't matter, I'll take care of it. Their blood might be infectious, so be careful not to make contact with them. Leyland's voice traveled over faintly, but Mise suddenly had a bad premonition. Boss, you're not going to. But it was too late. Mise raised his head and saw Leyland turning into a streak of golden light, as if fusing with the phantom phoenix on his back. The phoenix's cries were even louder than before, practically piercing through the clouds. Golden flames were emitted from its body. In that moment, the phantom image of the phoenix had turned into a giant, blazing bird. The apex of Fireplume Undead Aves. Mise's eyes grew wide as he muttered to himself. He had only heard of this killing technique in legends. Based on the rumors, only those who had trained in Fireplume up to the sky rank and above, and only ones with incomparably pure bloodlines could exhibit this ultimate technique, restricted to the Imberwang royal family. To be that Lay is a member of the esteemed Imberwang royal family. Mise watched the flaming undead Aves soaring in the skies, suddenly feeling as if his brain had short-circuited. Rumble. With a shake of the flaming bird's feathers, large amounts of fiery red light shone down on the region. A spark fell onto the shoulder of one of the members of the Berserk Legion, and he immediately began to burn up fiercely, turning into a torch. With elated cries, the gigantic undead Aves dived towards the ground. Crap, get away! Drop down! The other Special Task Force members' voices, distorted due to their nervousness, traveled into Mise's ears, but he could not manage to process it. He wore a stupefied expression as he stared ahead. The terrifying giant flaming bird was like a falling meteor descending upon the ground, bringing with it horrifying tremendous waves of flames. All Mise could do was hug his head and crouch down. In the face of this strength that was like a natural disaster, he felt as tiny as an ant. The flaming bird descended into the heart of the Berserk Legion, and the flames swallowed them in an instant. Moments later, the flames gradually went out and revealed a tall figure. Boss, is actually this strong? Mise mumbled, hot blood rushing to his brain as he darted forward, glancing through the remains on the ground, eyes filled with tears. Captain, they were also. There are only enemies on the battlefield. Leyland's voice was icy cold, and the heat in Mise's body went cold. I'm very disappointed in you. Leyland had his arms behind his back as he left this hell slowly, leaving Mise in a daze. He's right, child. At some point, the general from before was at Mise's side. If we don't do this, if the Legion or any of these contaminated bodies escape, there could be a terrifying plague in the surrounding cities. Furthermore, with Lay's efforts, we've successfully destroyed this stronghold. No fire-feathered clansmen will have to be ruined by it anymore. The general patted Mise's shoulders. Cheer up, little guy. There seems to be some change in this little thing. I hope I haven't ruined his outlook on the world. Watching his bloodshot eyes as he darted to the front lines, a smile of rumination shot up on his lips. The desert branch of the Triserpent sect had been destroyed, but there were still many other branches and organizations remaining in the eastern region of the Union. They were now within a giant emburrowing city. The members of the Triserpent sect had actually set up a secret base within a city, something that only managed to increase Leyland's respect for them. To be able to come up and make use of this meant they were absolute geniuses. It was a pity that in a time when physical strength was of utmost importance, intelligence automatically decreased in value to the point that it was negligible. The army surrounded the area, while the special task force rushed in. Leyland had long since gotten used to arranging things like these. After that matter the other day, Mize had seemed depressed for a few days, but seemed to become mature immediately after. In the next few battles, he was in an unusual state where he would charge to the front lines and was ruthless in his attacks. It was as if he believed that the more he killed, the lesser the number of his clansmen that would be oppressed by the enemy, or something to that effect. It was a certain level of maturity, although still naive. "It's good to be young," Leyland observed the hot-blooded Mize, and could not help but get emotional. His real age had long since surpassed 200, and he was even older than his grandfather's grandfather in his previous world. Watching Mize now was like looking at a child. "Captain, the stronghold has been purged. No enemy was caught," Mize reported to Leyland with indifference, blood on his body. "Good. Go back and reorganize yourselves. The spoils of battle won't reduce." Leyland's arms were tucked together as he nodded. At this moment, a female soldier rushed over in a hurry, holding a communicative device similar to a handset. "Captain Ley, a call from Lord Skyker." "Instructor." Taking the handset, he immediately heard the sounds within. Though the principle of this thing's operation was different, it was still like the cell phones of his previous world. "I know everything you've done. Very good." Skyker's voice sounded from within the handset, praise in his tone. Evidently, he had heard of the results of Leyland's battles. However, Leyland had astutely realized the trace of fury hidden in his voice. That was obviously not aimed at him. Looks like Skyker met with some trouble during his operation at destroying the Mobius organization, Leyland thought. As expected, Skyker mentioned this right after. "Captain Ley, I now command you to bring all your members and hurry to Walk City and meet me." "Understood," Leyland answered loudly. After waiting for a moment, he lowered his voice and asked, "Did anything happen there?" "Yes, there are some issues," Skyker answered vaguely after a brief silence. It was obvious he did not want to touch on it. "All right, I'll hurry there now." Leyland obviously knew what to say in this situation. After putting down the handset and sending away the female communications officer whose expression was full of admiration, Leyland sank into deep thought, his hand finding his chin. Mobius organization. Is this organization more difficult to deal with than the Triserpent sect? Tingling senses, there were many rebellious organizations in the Atlan Union, as well as various sects. However, the Union leader had only chosen to act against the Triserpent sect and Mobius organizations, which led Leyland to make a mental association. If the Triserpent sect was targeted because of its 3 foreign Morning Star warlocks, what about the Mobius organization? What did they have? A trace of a smile appeared about Leyland's lips. "Interesting. It's getting increasingly interesting." He abruptly turned back and shouted, "All members assemble." As Leyland had very few subordinates, he could act swiftly and decisively, bringing his unit to the Walk City Skyker had spoken of the very next afternoon. After entering the city, Leyland sensed that the level of security was much higher than before. Even Leyland and the others were checked over once before being allowed entry. Uneasiness seemed to permeate the air. Could the Mobius organization have caused a huge ruckus? Curious. Leyland touched his chin as he arrived at the area Skyker had spoken of, which was also the current station of the Special Task Force. "Ley," Loke welcomed him, pleasantly surprised. "It's great that you could come so quickly. What's going on?" Leyland's brows furrowed in feigned concern. "We might have found the Mobius organization's headquarters. The attack that Instructor led was met with a violent counterattack from the other side. It's best that you personally take a look." Loke smiled wryly as he got out of the way. There was a gloom between his brows that would not disappear easily. It was so well feigned that Leyland cheered for him on the inside. It was rare to find actors of this caliber. As he opened the door and found Skyker inside, Leyland displayed an expression of alarm. "Instructor, how did you?" The Skiker in front of him now was in a pitiful state, wrapped up to the point that he seemed like a mummy. His right arm was hung in front of his chest. "Lay, you did well." Seeing the worry on Leyland's face, Skiker looked gratified. "You only took a day to get here." "It's my honor to serve my lord." Leyland looked devoted. After all, the other party had connections in the capital and was his best route to getting Furosaur's stones. He could not give him up so easily. What exactly happened? Leyland clenched his fists, sparks emitting from his body. "This level. It means your fire plume is about to break through to the 9th level, entering the peak sky rank." Skiker watched Leyland, eyes full of an unspeakable radiance. "In terms of training, you'll probably surpass me soon enough." "Not at all. It's all thanks to instructor's nurture." Leyland bowed slightly to show his respect. "We underestimated our opponent this time. I'd assumed it was an ordinary branch of the enemy, but never could I have expected that we'd found their headquarters." Leyland listened closely. Skiker, with Loke and the rest as well as the support he garnered from the army, should have been able to complete the operation of destroying the Mobius organization smoothly. However, while wiping out one of the branches nearby, they'd found quite a few red-clothed bishops. Skiker, who had realized he had found a big opportunity, was obviously excited as he gathered quite a few sky-rank generals and prepared to eliminate these bishops at one go. However, when the time came for the actual attack, Skiker found out he had completely wrong. There had been a mistake in his calculations. This wasn't some branch of the Mobius organization, but their headquarters. They had astounding harvests under the joint effort of the sky ranks at first, and had even seized much of the resources the Mobius organization had stocked up on. Suddenly, Skiker was unwilling to say more, a hint of fear appearing on his expression. This expression immediately alarmed Leyland. For the fearless Skiker to become this way, the matter could not be simple. "I've gathered you only so that you can take over the next operations of the Special Task Force, especially since I'm in this state." Skiker raised his arm and laughed bitterly. "As for the issues there will be people coming in from the capital to take care of it. Don't worry." Leyland came out, still baffled, and went to look for Loke. Under the questioning of this new superior, Loke narrated all the parts Skiker had failed to explain clearly. As it turned out, while transporting the resources back, Skiker and the rest had been met with an ambush, resulting in total annihilation. Even the resources had been lost, and a few sky-rank generals had perished on the spot. Only Skiker had somehow managed to survive. "Oh, how many people were there?" Leyland had some conjectures and asked curiously. Just one, but he was more terrifying than thousands of troops and horses because that was a star rank." Loke's voice was low, as if afraid to alarm anyone. There was an obvious hint of joy in the fact that he was weak and useless in a battle between sky ranks, and had thus not participated in that operation. Otherwise, he'd be dead right now. "A star rank?" Leyland seemed to breathe in sharply, although his mind was actually working quickly. Star ranks were the most powerful members of the lava world. They were on the same level as morning star magi of the Magus world, and were absolutely certain of their cultivation path. They were existences who had already generated a core. Every single one of these existences was celebrated. Their achievements would be written in history books or even as legends, passed down for eternity. Facing such an expert, sky ranks would only be courting death unless there were other star ranks suppressing them. If Skiker had met one, it meant he had incredibly bad luck. On top of that, Leyland touched his chin, deep in thought. Skiker's backing must be quite firm for even a morning star Magus to have qualms about killing him and leave him alive. Leyland, who was also a morning star, naturally knew the terror of rank 4s. For morning star magi, sky ranks were just like slightly large ants. The generals, who were also at the sky rank, had all died, leaving only Skiker behind. Leyland did not think that this morning star Magus had a good heart and let Skiker go. It was very likely that the real reason was because he feared the person backing Skiker. "Looks like Skiker's background is very mysterious. I'll need to pay more attention and take advantage of that," Leyland decided resolutely. That's the basic situation. With the motivation from this event, many branches of the Mobius organization that had begun to disperse seemed to be congregating again. Loke shrugged his shoulders, the wry smile not diminishing at all. "But we only need to push through during this period of time. The Northern Duke will reach this place soon, and when that happens, we can. Just continue acting." Leyland rolled his eyes inside, while he looked to be in favor of his words. The Northern Duke. That's a famous star rank of the Union. With him around, the Mobius organization won't be able to settle down and have a peaceful time," he exclaimed in admiration. At the same time, he now understood the reason for Skyker's listless look. Since someone with a higher status was taking over, his own position was dispensable, and his achievements would be wrested away from him. Though the Northern Duke might not think much of these merits, Skyker would not want to accept charity from others. Leyland knew very well what type of person he was, and he was not one to admit defeat. "In that case, I should return and quickly take over the defense of the Special Task Force, preparing for the counterattack." Leyland and Locke hastily bid farewell. Leyland did not like this idea. The Mobius organization had star ranks, as well as many helpers and followers. After noticing something, they would definitely retreat, and by the time that Northern Duke reached, he would only see an empty nest. However, all this was none of Leyland's business. What he focused on was the resources that had been stolen by the mysterious star rank. To be able to get a star rank dispatched after them, these resources must be especially precious. There might even be Furosaur stones inside. Leyland's eyes flashed. He was in dire need of these stones, but he did not have that many points to exchange them. Since the proper way wasn't working, he would need to think of other methods. Not long after Locke left, Leyland's expression changed. He came to his room and took out the crimson gemstone from before. Rays of brilliance were twinkling, the two threads of pale flames beginning to increase in intensity at the middle. Seeing this, a smile showed on Leyland's face. "They've come together." At the bottom of the lava not far from the city, in a secret space that had been opened, two figures were facing each other, sitting cross-legged. All of a sudden, a bald male with no eyebrows or a beard opened his eyes full of doubt. "I felt a trace of my soul flames. Which Warlock has arrived here?" I had the same feeling. Opposite him was a young girl in blood-red robes. Her eyes were strange vertical pupils that would make people shudder in fear. "Is this a trap?" Gilbert muttered to himself and asked slowly. "It doesn't seem like it, unless the Ouroboros clan was completely breached and Freya and the rest have all died." Blood Duchess Emma was very confident in the loyalty of her students. Then, have the reinforcements from the Warlock Union arrived? Excitement appeared in Gilbert's tone. "HMPH, if they were reliable, we wouldn't be in this situation." In contrast, Emma's retort showed that she did not have a good impression of the Warlock Union. "Meeting, it's not for us to decide anyway, since they've already taken the initiative to come here." Crimson flames flashed on Emma's body as she appeared in midair, Gilbert right behind her. Eventually, the two came to a stop, standing side by side. "The soul flames are closing in very quickly, and the other party's aura is very powerful. It's a morning star, but this bloodline undulation. How is it possible?" Gilbert turned to Emma in disbelief, only to be met with Emma's eyes filled with similar astonishment and suspicion. From the incoming person, they felt the purest Chem-In bloodline aura. But how was that possible? There had always only been 3 Morning Star Warlocks in the Ouroboros clan. Did the first elder come back to life? An idea rose in Gilbert's mind, but was quickly extinguished. He had personally seen the death of the first elder, and his point mass had even returned to the astral plane. From the thickness of the bloodline, the purity of the other party's Chem-In bloodline was even above that of themselves, even that of the first elder. "Who is it?" Gilbert and Emma watched the red rays that were shooting over from the distance, filled with curiosity. "Sue." The light rays dissipated, revealing the appearance of a handsome young man. A bright smile on his face, and he rushed to bow towards Gilbert. "Mentor, I've arrived." In the next moment, Gilbert and Emma's mouths were just as wide, their eyeballs almost popping out. "Leyland, how's that possible?" A good while later, while Gilbert and Emma seemed to have accepted Leyland's promotion to Morning Star as reality, there was still a shock that could not be concealed in their eyes. This is how it happened. "I advanced to Morning Star just when Phosphorescent Swamp was about to be breached, and then killed Demon Hunter Cyril. The Allied forces withdrew, and both sides are restraining themselves. The situation has now stabilized." Leyland gave a brief overview of what he had experienced in the Magus world. Of course, anything that touched upon his secrets, such as the AI chip, the Lamia finger bone, and all that, was obviously hidden and not discussed. Gilbert and Emma had not asked either. Of those who had reached the realm of Morning Star, who did not have their own secrets? Even the two of them had many fortuitous meetings while at rank 3 and received inheritances from ruins and the like, which had allowed them to thankfully advance to rank 4. In that case, that guy, Cyril, is really dead. Emma's eyes were filled with astonishment as she sized up Leyland. Compared to her own age, Leyland was much too young right now. However, it was this adolescent warlock who had caused demon hunter Cyril's fall. Emma couldn't help but recall Cyril's terrifying demonic spells, as well as his power and abundant experience. Her opinion of this young man raised immensely. All right, well then, are the two of you willing to return to the Magus world now? Leyland took off the silver-white necklace on his neck that was emanating the rays of stars. Gilbert and Emma's breaths immediately became heavier. This was the projection of the coordinates of Leyland's astral gate. It could open the astral gate and allow them to return to the Ouroboros clan. However, Gilbert and Emma exchanged a wry smile and did not speak. Instead, the area turned strangely silent. I understand. It seems like your graces still have very important things to do in the lava world. Leyland laughed, not minding the least. Yes. In the end, it was Emma who spoke up. Leyland, you're a morning star just like us, so you don't have to call us your grace. Just call us by our names. All right, my lords. Leyland looked solemn as he began to make guesses. Is it because of the Phurosaur stones? The moment the words left his mouth, Leyland noticed the change in Gilbert's expression while Emma cried out in alarm. You've actually found out. Of course, it's a treasure that can strengthen the soul and even the point mass. Any morning star would go crazy over it. Leyland nodded as he admitted. All right, in that case, we don't have to keep hiding it from you like before. Emma immediately threw away all hesitation. Although Jupiter's lightning had duped us, we were much stronger than they had anticipated. This was especially so in another world, where their radiant moon could not intrude. While we did suffer a bit, we managed to break out, and while searching for the road back, we found out about the Phurosaur stones. Emma sounded emotional. How can we let go of this treasure that can amplify soul force? We 3 Morning Star Warlocks thus led the way and took in a few oppressed races within the Atlan Union, creating the organization, the Triserpent Sect. On the surface, we want to overthrow the government of Atlan, but in reality, we prioritize gathering Phurosaur stones. Leyland nodded. In this meeting, he had found that the 2 dukes, soul undulations, were obviously much more powerful than in the Magus world. It seemed to be the effect from the Phurosaur stones. Then, where's the first elder? Leyland asked, and the atmosphere immediately became gloomy. A long while later, Gilbert spoke, his voice hoarse. There are many powerful beings in the lava world. At the peak are a few who have a strength similar to Radiant Moon Magi. At the beginning, with the 3 of us working together, everything went smoothly, and we even seized quite a lot of Phurosaur stones. However, the organization Jupiter's lightning set up here was obviously much larger, and even had relations with the higher-ups in Atlan. The head of their union was one who had trained up to the 13th level of the fire plume technique, which was unheard of in history. He was a peak Radiant Moon Magus. Under his assault along with many other magi, the first elder fell, while trying to protect us. Though Gilbert explained it in a simplified manner, Leyland could tell how desperate that battle had been. He could keenly tell that Gilbert had concealed some things. Whatever it was, he would never believe the first elder was so selfless, but Gilbert and Emma had not asked why Leyland had not come here right after the battle, and instead done so only now. Leyland thus would not make his opinion known. This means Mentor and Madame Emma are preparing to stay here for a period of time and conspire to obtain more Phurosaur stones. In that case, we can collaborate. Leyland touched his chin. He held the same thoughts as these 2 Morning Star Warlocks. With 2 Morning Star helpers, he had more confidence. That's great. With you joining us, Leyland, our strength will increase by a large amount, and we will even have a way to retreat. Emma and Gilbert exchanged a glance, the elation obvious in their eyes. It looked like they had been planning to cause a huge ruckus before leaving this world. Leyland could not help but feel his scalp tingle. The unrestrained attacks of 3 Morning Star Warlocks would definitely throw the entire Atlan Union into chaos. However, this was none of his business. As long as he could obtain enough Phurosaur stones, he didn't mind pushing the Union into the abyss or breaking it into smithereens. Leyland patted his head, suddenly remembering something as he spoke. Right. I'm lying low in the special task force in Atlan for now. In order to obtain their trust, I destroyed a few of Triserpent Sect's strongholds. It doesn't matter. Those are just the surrounding organizations. We can just create a few more soon. To really obtain their full trust, it doesn't matter even if we hand over the whole Triserpent sect." Gilbert waved his arms, not minding the least. "In actuality, we've also been keeping a low profile in the Atlan Union and even obtained titles. Most of the intel regarding the Triserpent sect was intentionally divulged by us." Emma laughed, a layer of sparkling red feathers appearing on her body. "The Emberwings and Fireplume," Leyland chuckled. Morning Star Warlocks were all grandmasters at remodeling bloodlines. With Emma and Gilbert's experience, passing off an identity as an Emberwing was way too easy. On top of that, these two were ruthless and had even sold away their organization just to obtain trust. That was probably how they gained their titles, and why they did not mind Leyland's actions. Leyland was rather speechless at that, feeling like he still needed to learn much more from his seniors in these dark areas. If the followers of the Triserpent sect found out they had been betrayed by their leaders, they would probably just break down. Leyland could not help but begin to pity them. "Do you have any intel?" Leyland asked. These two warlocks had been laying low here for longer than he had, and definitely knew more secrets. "Of course," Gilbert laughed proudly. "Based on our sources, there's only one place where the Furosaur stones are being generated, and that's the capital of the Atlan Union, Tylasis. It only comes from the head himself, which means the source is being controlled by him. There are very few reserves outside. The head who is at the 13th level of Fireplume, the peak of Radiant Moon." Leyland sighed lightly, knowing things were going to get troublesome. 3 Morning Stars cooperating was still not enough to snatch something from this opponent. That was not all. Fighting in another world, foreign beings like them obviously had a disadvantage compared to the people of this land. The world's will itself would also have a bias and help its own people, and even if a peak Radiant Moon were to head over, they might not be able to deal with this opponent. "Gilbert and I have already set up a plan. We're planning to sneak into Tylasis 2 months later on the Holy Solar Day." "You're just in time," Emma exclaimed. Leyland touched his chin. Holy Solar Day was a very important festival of the Emberwangs. During that time, the head would have to make a speech, participate in the feast, and whatnot. There were more than enough opportunities to sneak into his residence.